If you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, then stop waiting for a new year to save you. The calendar is not your problem. The year is not your problem. The economy is not your problem. The real problem is that you keep trying to change your results without changing yourself, and that has never worked. It will not start working in 2026. Most people think a new year creates a new opportunity. It doesn't. It exposes who you already are. If you are disciplined now, you will be disciplined then. If you are distracted now, you will be distracted then. January 1st does not magically install focus, courage, or consistency into your brain. It only reveals the habits you refuse to fix. If you're new here, my name is Alex Hormozi. I'm the founder and managing partner of Acquisition.com. We invest our own money into companies, and our portfolio generates over $250 million a year. Our ownership ranges from 20% to 100% in those businesses. And I'm not saying that so you clap. I'm saying that so you understand something very clearly. None of that happened because I was lucky, and none of that happened because I waited for the right time. It happened because I became the kind of person who could handle that level of pressure, risk, and responsibility. At 21, I graduated from Vanderbilt in 3 years, magna cum laude. I took the fancy consulting job, good salary, prestige, stability. From the outside, it looked like I had already won, but inside, I knew I was building someone else's dream. So at 23, I quit. No safety net, no rich family backing me. I opened a gym. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't tolerate a small life. At 24, I had 5 gym locations. It looked like momentum. It looked like success. But growth without understanding is fragile. At 26, I opened a 6th gym, and everything collapsed. I lost the business. I lost the money. I lost the stability. When you lose everything, you don't feel inspired. You feel exposed. You realize effort is not enough. Passion is not enough. Wanting it badly is not enough. Most people would have stopped there. They would have protected their ego. They would have said, entrepreneurship isn't for me. But I couldn't accept that story. So I went back in. I launched 33 gyms. I pushed harder. I worked longer. And then I lost everything again. Twice. You want to talk about doubt? Try explaining to yourself why you failed again after thinking you fixed everything. Try waking up knowing you gave years of your life to something that disappeared. That's when most people quit for good. That's when they decide they're not cut out for it. But failure has a gift. It removes illusions. It forces you to confront the truth. I wasn't failing because the market was unfair. I wasn't failing because I lacked ambition. I was failing because I didn't yet have the skills or the model that worked at scale. I was trying to win with intensity instead of intelligence. Out of desperation, I made a different decision. Instead of opening more gyms, I started licensing the model. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't my original plan. It was a last move, a Hail Mary, and it worked. In 6 months, Gym Launch generated $3 million in profit. In the next 12 months, it generated $17 million in profit. Same work ethic. Different strategy, higher standards, stronger identity. That's what you need to understand about 2026. The year doesn't change your life. A decision does, a standard does, an identity shift does. The version of you who keeps negotiating with comfort cannot create an extraordinary year. The version of you who avoids hard conversations cannot build an extraordinary business. The version of you who scrolls for hours cannot design an extraordinary future. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. And right now, your systems are perfectly designed to give you the life you currently have. If you don't like your income, your body, your discipline, your network, that's not an accident. That's a reflection. This isn't about motivation. Motivation is cheap. It fades. This is about ownership, radical ownership. The moment you stop blaming circumstances and start upgrading standards, everything shifts. Not instantly, not magically, but predictably. If you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, you have to stop asking for easier conditions and start building a stronger character. You have to become someone who keeps promises to himself, someone who executes when it's boring, someone who continues when there is no applause, someone who improves when no one is watching. Because the uncomfortable truth is this: the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not time. It's who you are being daily. Most people don't fail because they don't want success badly enough. They fail because they are addicted to comfort more than they are committed to growth. And comfort is dangerous because it doesn't feel like destruction. It feels like safety. It feels reasonable. It feels earned. But slowly, quietly, it keeps you exactly where you are. If you really want 2026 to be the best year of your life, you have to understand this. Your current habits are perfectly designed to produce your current results. Not the results you dream about, not the results you talk about, the results you are living right now. And if you don't deliberately break those habits, nothing changes. When I lost everything the first time, I thought the solution was to work harder. So I did. Longer hours, more locations, more hustle. I believed intensity would solve structural problems. It didn't. When I lost everything the second time, I realized something painful. Effort without the right thinking is just exhaustion. Most people double down on effort when they should be upgrading their standards. They grind instead of reflect. They move faster instead of thinking deeper. And then they wonder why the same patterns keep repeating. Here's the shift that changed everything for me. I stopped asking, how can I make this work? And started asking, what would someone operating at the highest level do in this situation? That question forces you to step outside your current identity, because the person who created your current problems cannot be the same person who solves them. You say you want more money, but do you think like an investor or like a consumer? You say you want a better body. But do you think like an athlete or like someone looking for shortcuts? You say you want freedom. But do you act like someone who values long-term leverage or like someone chasing quick dopamine? In my case, I had to admit that I was building businesses emotionally. I was reacting instead of designing. I was chasing expansion instead of protecting margins. I was proud of revenue and blind to profit, and pride is expensive. When I shifted to licensing instead of opening more gyms, it wasn't because I suddenly became smarter overnight. It was because pain forced me to evaluate differently. I started prioritizing scalability. I started focusing on systems. I started measuring what actually mattered. And most importantly, I stopped caring about looking impressive and started caring about being effective. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs focus on looking successful. Professionals focus on being successful. Amateurs chase applause. Professionals chase results. Amateurs get emotional about setbacks. Professionals get analytical. If 2026 is going to be different, you cannot operate emotionally anymore. You cannot let how you feel determine what you do, because feelings change hourly. Standards don't. There will be mornings when you don't feel motivated. There will be days when progress feels invisible. There will be moments when quitting feels logical. And the person you are today negotiates in those moments. The person you need to become does not. The truth is harsh but simple. Your life is a reflection of the standards you tolerate. The money you make reflects what you're willing to learn. The body you have reflects what you're willing to sacrifice. The respect you receive reflects what you're willing to enforce. When I finally built something that worked, it wasn't because the opportunity was perfect. It was because I was different. I had fewer distractions. I had clearer metrics. I had stricter boundaries. I said no more often. I focused longer. I stopped ying to win every battle and started trying to build an unfair advantage. And here's what most people miss. Transformation is boring. It's not dramatic. It's repetitive. It's doing the same high-value actions over and over until they compound. It's saying no to things that don't move the needle. It's choosing long-term gain over short-term relief. If you want 2026 to feel extraordinary, you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable consistently in 2025. You have to build discipline before you need it. You have to create structure before chaos forces it on you. Because success is not built in the spotlight. It's built in the unseen decisions. The extra hour of learning, the uncomfortable sales call, the workout you didn't skip, the money you didn't spend, the distraction you didn't entertain. The gap between average and exceptional is not talent. It's tolerance. Tolerance for boredom, tolerance for uncertainty, tolerance for delayed gratification. The one thing that silently destroys most people's potential isn't lack of opportunity. It isn't lack of intelligence. It isn't even lack of resources. It's distraction, constant, low-level, socially accepted distraction. And it's killing your future in a way that feels harmless. You wake up and check your phone. You tell yourself, it's just for a minute. That minute becomes 20. You scroll, you consume, you compare. Before you've created anything, you've already fed your brain a stream of other people's lives, and you wonder why you feel behind. You wonder why you feel anxious. You wonder why you can't focus. Distraction is expensive because it fragments your attention, and attention is the most valuable asset you have. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your attention is controlled, your growth becomes inevitable. When I was rebuilding after losing everything, I didn't have the luxury of distraction. I was too desperate. Every hour mattered. Every decision mattered. I wasn't thinking about what everyone else was doing. I was thinking about survival. And survival simplifies things. It forces clarity. It forces focus. The problem is, most of you are not desperate enough. You're uncomfortable, but not desperate. You're dissatisfied, but not committed. You want more, but not at the cost of your comfort. And that middle zone is dangerous. It's comfortable enough to tolerate, but painful enough to complain about. If you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, you need to manufacture urgency before life does it for you, because life will create urgency eventually. It might come in the form of financial pressure. It might come in the form of health issues. It might come in the form of regret. And regret is the heaviest one. I've met people who are far more talented than me who never built anything meaningful, not because they couldn't, but because they were distracted by smaller pleasures. They traded long-term fulfillment for short-term entertainment. They traded depth for noise. Deep work is rare now. Sitting with one problem for hours is rare. Saying no to social validation is rare, and rarity creates value. If you can do what most people refuse to do, focus without interruption, you automatically separate yourself. When Gym Launch started working, it wasn't because I discovered some secret hack. It was because I eliminated noise. I focused on one model, one offer, one customer type, one metric at a time. I wasn't chasing 10 opportunities. I was refining one until it became undeniable. Most people sabotage themselves by splitting their energy. They start a business, then another idea, then another. They start a fitness routine, then switch programs 2 weeks later. They start learning a skill, then abandon it when progress feels slow. They confuse movement with progress. Progress requires consistency, and consistency requires focus, and focus requires sacrifice. You cannot have elite results with average discipline. You cannot build something extraordinary while living reactively. Every notification you answer immediately is training your brain to be controlled by external stimuli. Every time you choose entertainment over effort, you reinforce an identity of avoidance. This isn't about becoming robotic, it's about becoming intentional. It's about deciding that your future deserves your full attention. It's about understanding that every hour wasted compounds just like every productive hour compounds. Imagine if you treated your time like money. If someone stole $100 from you every day, you would be furious, but you let hours disappear without resistance. Hours that could be invested in learning, building, improving, strengthening, hours that compounded over a year could change your trajectory completely. If 2026 is going to be different, your relationship with time must change. You must become protective of it, aggressive about it, selective about who and what gets access to you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: the person who masters their attention masters their future. And the person who loses control of their attention will always feel behind, overwhelmed, and reactive. If you want 2026 to be predictable in its success instead of hopeful in its outcome, then you need structure, not motivation, not inspiration, structure. Because structure is what carries you on the days you don't feel strong. Structure is what keeps you moving when emotions fluctuate, and emotions will fluctuate. Most people wake up and decide what to do based on how they feel. If they feel energized, they work. If they feel tired, they delay. If they feel stressed, they distract themselves. That's not discipline. That's mood-based productivity. And mood-based productivity creates inconsistent results. When I finally stopped losing everything, it wasn't because I felt more confident. It was because I became more systematic. I stopped trusting my emotions and started trusting processes. I decided in advance what mattered. I defined the few actions that actually moved the needle. And then I built my day around those actions, not around convenience. You don't need a perfect plan for 2026. You need a non-negotiable standard. You need to identify the 20% of actions that create 80% of your results and obsess over those. If you're building a business, that might be sales conversations and improving your offer. If you're trying to get in shape, that might be training and nutrition consistency. If you're trying to grow financially, that might be increasing skills that raise your income. But here's where most people fail. They overcomplicate it. They create elaborate goals, color-coded planners, massive to-do lists, and then they feel overwhelmed, or they even start. Simplicity scales, complexity collapses. When Gym Launch exploded, my days became simple. Wake up, focus on the core metric, improve the offer, coach the team, refine the system, repeat. There was no constant pivoting, no emotional decision-making, just execution. You need to decide right now what your primary focus is for 2026. Not 5 goals, not 10 priorities, one main direction. Because divided focus produces diluted results. Concentrated focus produces dominance. Then you reverse engineer it. If you want to make a certain income, how many sales does that require? If you want a certain body, how many workouts per week does that require? If you want a certain skill level, how many hours of practice does that require? Break it down until it becomes daily actions. Because daily actions are controllable. Outcomes are not. Discipline becomes easier when decisions are made ahead of time. If you decide in advance that you train at 6 a.m., you don't debate it at 5:45. If you decide in advance that you work on your highest value task first, you don't scroll before starting. Pre-decided standards eliminate internal negotiations. And internal negotiation is where most dreams die. It sounds small. Just 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. But those small negotiations compound. They train you to betray your own goals. They weaken your self-trust. And once you stop trusting yourself, everything becomes harder. When I rebuilt after failure, I realized self-trust was more valuable than confidence. Confidence comes from results. Self-trust comes from keeping promises to yourself. And self-trust creates stability. It creates calm under pressure. It creates resilience when things don't go your way. If you want 2026 to be your best year, start building self-trust now. Keep small promises. Show up when you said you would. Finish what you start. Track your metrics. Review your progress weekly. Adjust intelligently, not emotionally, because success is rarely dramatic. It's structured, it's scheduled, it's measured, it's reviewed, and then improved. You don't need to become superhuman. You need to become consistent. You don't need to outwork everyone for a week. You need to outlast most people for a year. That's where the separation happens. Most people sprint in January and disappear by March. Professionals move steadily all year. Starting is exciting. Announcing your goals feels powerful. Planning your comeback gives you a rush. But none of that guarantees anything, because the real test of who you are is not how you start the year. It's who you become when the excitement fades. By February, motivation drops. By March, reality sets in. By June, most people are negotiating with the same habits they promised to eliminate. And by December, they're saying, next year will be different. That cycle repeats, not because they're incapable, but because they never fully decided. If you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, you cannot treat it like a trial run. You cannot approach it casually. You cannot say, let's see what happens. You have to decide that the version of you who keeps settling is no longer acceptable. When I finally broke through, it wasn't because I found a secret strategy. It was because I removed the option of going backward. I stopped treating discipline like a phase. I stopped seeing discomfort as temporary suffering. I started seeing it as the price of expansion. There's a version of you right now that already knows what to do. You know you should wake up earlier. You know you should train consistently. You know you should stop wasting hours online. You know you should develop higher income skills. The information is not missing. The courage to execute consistently and courage isn't loud. It's quiet. It's choosing the harder option when nobody is watching. It's continuing after a bad day instead of restarting next week. It's accepting that progress will feel slow before it feels significant. Most people underestimate the power of compounding because it's invisible at first. One workout doesn't change your body. One sales call doesn't change your income. One focus day doesn't change your life. But stack those days for 300 days and you won't recognize yourself. The reason I can sit here today with companies generating over $250 million a year isn't because of one brilliant move. It's because of thousands of disciplined decisions. It's because I stayed in the game long enough for compounding to work in my favor. Most people quit before momentum ever has a chance to build. You cannot expect extraordinary results from inconsistent effort. You cannot demand growth while protecting your comfort. You cannot ask for a different life while defending the habits that created the current one. 2026 does not need a new version of your goals. It needs a new standard for your behavior. Raise the floor. Make your worst days better. Even on your off days, you execute at a higher baseline than you used to. That's how transformation becomes permanent. And understand this clearly. It will not feel glamorous. There will be doubt. There will be fatigue. There will be moments where you question whether it's worth it. In those moments, average people slow down. Elite people tighten up. They return to their structure. They return to their metrics. They return to their commitments. Your future is not built in grand gestures. It's built in controlled days. Days where you did what you said you would do. Days where you improved slightly. Days where you didn't quit. Those days compound into identity, and identity compounds into destiny. If you truly want 2026 to be the best year of your life, then decide right now that you are done negotiating with mediocrity. Decide that your word means something. Decide that your focus is protected. Decide that your standards are rising, because at the end of 2026, you will either have evidence that you changed or excuses for why you didn't. 1 year from now, you will meet the version of yourself that your habits created. The only question is, will you be proud when you see them? The clock is moving either way. The year will pass whether you transform or repeat. So choose intentionally, choose discipline, choose focus, ooze growth, and make 2026 the year you stopped wishing and started becoming